Dr. M.K. Ranjitsinh Ji, welcome to the Arrived podcast. Sir belongs to the royal family of Wankaner from in Saurashtra, Gujarat. Post that, he joined the Indian Administrative Services.
I was the youngest of 5 siblings. As such, a bit mollycoddled and spoiled and indulged in by all. Mahatma Gandhi's grandfather was the Diwan of Wankaner.
Wow.
Karamchand Gandhi was appointed as the Prime Minister of Wankaner by my great-grandfather, and he lived there and worked for 7 years. 3 princely families in 3 neighboring districts of Madhya Pradesh in 35 years shot 3,500 tigers, they and their guests. When a Stephanian talks to another Stephanian, he says, there is only one college in the world. I mean, when they say college, it means sanctuaries. My best friend, Vinod Dixit, married a Miranda girl, Sheila, who became the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh.
Delhi.
Delhi, sorry.
Yes, wow.
Ranjitsinh Jhala, the cricketer, was with my grandfather at college, at school, Rakma College. He had given me a jagir, my grandfather.
Ji.
And I still continue to get that. And he used to tell me in Gujarati કે તમે ઘરે બેસીને કરશો શું? ખેતી કરશો અને પછી રાતે બેસીને દારૂ પીશો. And that motivated me. And my father was a classmate of the great Dipen Singh.
Sir, what has been the biggest challenge of your life?
That's a difficult one. I have worked longer than any officer in the Ministry of Environment Forest ever since its creation. And now I find myself in legal battles against my own alma mater. Not a nice feeling. The problem in this country is that nature conservation, ecology, doesn't get you votes. I used to see in my neighborhood people sending their children in school in government cars. My children went in a bus. Now I'm told of the 180 odd countries surveyed in environment, including wildlife, we are 177th. That's not something to be proud of.
When I met Dr. M.K. Ranjitsinh Ji for the first time, I did not know who he was, apart from somebody who was interested in wildlife. But when I did get to know who he was, my curiosity went through the roof. This is a royal, goes on to become an IAS officer, and literally goes on to become one of the legends in the wildlife conservation space of the country. This podcast is an endeavor to understand the motivation behind this man, the kind of family that he is born into, and the kind of life that he leads, and the kind of work that he does over the years is beyond imagination for me. It is one of the most special podcasts that I have done till date and will remain a very special one throughout my life. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I hope you do too. If you like this story of a Maharaja leaving his throne and going on to serve his country, please share this story with your friends and family and help us bring more such stories to you. Enjoy the podcast. Dr. M.K. Ranjitsinh Ji, sir, welcome to the Arrived podcast.
Thank you very much.
Sir, I must admit, this is by far the most special podcast that I have ever done. I have not done many, but I'm pretty sure that this will stay the most special podcast in the future as well. Today, I want to explore who are you as a person. I'm sure everybody knows about the work that you have done, the contributions that you have made to the country. Just to mention a few, for those of you who do not know who Sir is, Sir belongs to the royal family of Wankaner from in Saurashtra, Gujarat. That's where he was born. Post that, he joined the Indian Administrative Services, went on to become the Forest Secretary of Madhya Pradesh, was the Commissioner of Bhopal for a while during a very, very testing time in the history of the city. That is the Bhopal gas tragedy. Sir was the one who wrote pretty much the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Um, the Tiger Conservation Project was Sir's baby. Today, we're talking about the reintroduction of cheetah, the cheetahs in the ecosystem of the country. Well, this project was a brainchild of Sir as well, and these are just a few achievements of his professional career. Um, but today, Sir, I want to talk about you. Can we start from the beginning, sir?
Right.
Can you talk about where you were born? What was your childhood like?
Um, I was born in Wankaner, as you said. I was the youngest of 5 siblings. And as such, a bit mollycoddled and spoilt and indulged in by all. Um, I grew up in a milieu of animals, of hunting, of forests, and of nature. Uh, you must remember that that was an era, a hunting era, and tigers were meant to be shot, and as I often repeat, and partridges were meant to be eaten in this sense. And the discussion was often about how many animals you shot, or how many birds you pulled down, or what is the largest sambar you shot, or the largest 10-foot tiger, or whatever. Uh, but there was an angle to that. I do not subscribe to that hunting, the mass hunting that did take place. But you must remember it was very selective. Hunters are predators, and predators don't drive their own prey to extinction. But it's very interesting that, and it sounds a bit of a paradox or a bit far-fetched, but it is not. The princes and the British wanted to save the forests and the animals for one reason, that they wanted to hunt. And there was also a liking for the animal. It seems very odd and unacceptable that a person wanted to kill it. There were many types of hunters. Those who regarded it as a target, they were gunmen. Those who wanted to show off. For those who wanted a trophy and who loved animals and wanted to possess it, and that's the ultimate act of selfishness, because you want to own it, and so that nobody else can. It's a curious psychology, and I'm not going to go into that. But the net result was that a whole chain of parks and sanctuaries were left behind for that objective. During my second tenure as Director of Wildlife of India in the early 80s, I then took a count of how many were the hunting reserves of the British and of the princes. And at that point of time, in the early 80s, 85% plus were the hunting reserves of these two gentries. If that is what was left behind, then it was probably worth it. Because that was the motivation. It's very interesting. I've gone into this thing. There was more wildlife in the states of the princes who were keen on hunting than those that were not keen on hunting and didn't bother too much about to protect it. The And it was there was no Wildlife Act, but nobody could shoot anything without the concurrence of the ruler. And with it came the saving of the forest and the habitat. And that is the basic issue, the saving of the habitat. If the habitat is there, then the prey base is there, and the whole pyramid of life is sustained, then the animals come back. I do not say this to support the contention, but 3 princely families in 3 neighboring districts of Madhya Pradesh, now there are more, and I worked in Madhya Pradesh, in 35 years shot 3,500 tigers. They and their guests, 3,500. 3 princely families. At the end of that Holocaust, there were still more tigers left than now after Project Tiger.
Sir, how was your school life? आपकी school life कैसी थी? Where did you go to school? Who were your friends? What were your friends like? क्या special memories हैं आपकी school life से?
I went to school in Rajkumar College, Rajkot, जहाँ मेरे grandfather, मेरे father, मेरे uncle, मेरे elder brother सब वहीं के alumni हैं. And I stayed there for 5 years. I was one of the younger persons in my class, and I did reasonably well in senior Cambridge, got a first division. But along the process, I continued with my interest in wildlife, but I developed a great attraction or a great interest in cricket. And I was very keen on playing cricket, and I used to keep wickets.
So what year was this?
I joined Rajkumar College at the age of 10 years, a little more than 10.
So that was 1949?
1949, January. And I left in December 53. So it's 5 years, practically. And during that period, I did play cricket. But the problem was that you can only have one wicket keeper. And I had Ranjitsinh Singh of Jamnagar, who was my classmate and one of my best friends, but who kept me out of the team in school, in St. Stephen's College, and then he went on to play for India.
Wow, you had tough competition.
So I was a wicketkeeper in waiting. But anyway, it was great. And I did have some thing. I still am very, very interested in cricket.
Sir, was it an all-boys school or was it a co-education?
Absolutely.
All-boys school.
And at that time, St. Stephen's was also a all-boys college.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there must be a lot of girls who were crushing over you. So tell me maybe any interesting story about that, sir.
No.
Not really.
I used to be a shy chap, and I didn't fool around or go around with girls for various reasons, but mainly because it was sort of not the done thing to do. It was not in fashion. There were people, of course, who used to go and date girls, and God bless them. And Miranda House was a very happy hunting ground for Stephanians. And I know a lot of my best friend in college, Vinod Dixit, married a Miranda girl, Sheila Dixit, who became the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh. Oh, sorry.
Delhi.
Oh, Delhi, sorry.
Yes, wow.
And we were together in MA, it was a co-education.
Right, sir.
Because MA classes were in the university, not in St. Stephen's. I continued living in St. Stephen's, in the hostel, but the classes were outside. And there, of course, there were some girls.
So how was the shift? आप राजकोट से दिल्ली आए and you belong to a royal family. How did people react to you or behaved with you? Was there any difference in their behavior when they got to know who you were? क्या लोगों में अक्सर ये behavioral change होता है when they get to know who you are?
School is a great leveler. And everybody, I don't think they go on the basis, at school children, don't go on the basis of kiske paas kitna paisa ho, kya uska title hai. And if the fellow comes with false airs, कि मैं ये हूँ वो हूँ, with ghamand, is put right very quickly. The icons at school and college were those who were sportsmen, number one, and those who were good at school, studies.
Yes.
And in RKC, in any case, there were a number of princelings and potentates and their children and all that. So it used to be an old prince's school, the Rajkumar College, just like Mayo College once was. It was set up for the elite of those days, but it had become public school well before I joined. So, but it was an experience, and it was very good, rubbing shoulders with all kinds of people. And St. Stephen's also was a very good experience. The only thing I have about St. Stephen's is that we are snooty, the Stephanians. We think we are a superior class, and we used to look down our noses a bit. Not I, but others. But it was a
norm,
thing,
I guess.
Yeah, कि दूसरे college के, they are inferior people.
Except Miranda.
Yeah, except Miranda. नहीं, वो girls college का इतना नहीं था. But Hindu college was a butt end. And Hindu college used to beat us every time at cricket. And that was a big event. Anyway, so वो था जरा snootishness. When a Stephanian talks to another Stephanian, he says, college. There is only one college in the world. I mean, when they say college, it means St. Stephen's. So that kind of snootiness is there. I hope it isn't anymore, but it was in my time.
And what subject was your favorite during your college times? Was it geography?
No, history.
History.
And that, because I couldn't take geography, geography was my favorite, but there was no course for geography then. It was history because I couldn't take science. But by the time I arrived at BA Honours, I had decided to join the Forest Service. It was then still not an all India service, but I wanted to join the Forest Service even at the state level. Because that was, I'd come thing. But then I was told that I couldn't take it because I had done arts. Anybody who does mathematics was allowed to do mathematics. On what has mathematics honors got to do with
forest?
What forest and science, biology and botany? But there it was. It was allowed to appear in the Forest Service, and even now. But somebody who's done couldn't. And even when it came to my PhD, and my PhD is on a science subject, the university had to give a special dispensation, keeping in mind the number of publications I had made. And I was allowed to write on a scientific, because the ecology of the black buck, on which I wrote my PhD, is a scientific subject.
So what motivated you? Aapne BA kara. So, okay, let me draw this in a different manner. Sir, you belong to a royal family, and I'm speaking this and thinking this from point of view of a layman, from point of view of a commoner. Ke you belong to a royal family, then you go on to study at St. Stephen's. You do your masters, and then you do your PhD, and then you are motivated enough to become an IAS officer. Sir, आपको मोटिवेट क्या करती थी इतना पढ़ने के लिए चीज? What did
you see? I'll come to that, but please remember, the PhD was done when I was in service.
Okay.
Actually, I had time to write because I had joined the United Nations by then.
Okay.
And I got this dispensation in the um, in the 1980s, and I did my PhD. My PhD when I was in Madhya Pradesh. I started collecting material, but I wrote it. I took leave and wrote it. The study करने का था, I was always keen on studies, and it was very competitive, and I had been motivated by my grandfather and also by my parents to work. He had given me a jagir, my grandfather,
Ji.
on and I still continue to get that the little remuneration with the few thousand rupees which I get, which meant a lot in those days.
Ji.
But which is the same ever since. I was given a jagir, which was very sumptuous in those days, and I could have sat back
Ji.
and done nothing and just sat back in Wankaner.
And that's what intrigues me, sir.
For one thing, I don't want to sit and idle. And I always wanted to do something for myself and for others. But I was at that time motivated by my grandfather, who said that, and my two uncles, one was an ICS officer, Dr. Nagendra Singh, who died as the Chief Justice of the World Court at The Hague. And my other uncle was the Prime Minister of Dungarpur State, mere mama, his brother. And he then, after independence, became an IAS officer and a collector and a commissioner in Madhya Pradesh cadre. So they were Madhya Pradesh and serving officers. But my grandfather kept on saying, "Ke study and become an ICS officer like your uncles."
Okay.
And that the jagir that he had given me will last even less. And he used to tell me કે in Gujarati,
Ji.
કે તમે ઘરે બેસીને કરશો શું? ખેતી કરશો અને પછી રાતે બેસીને દારૂ પીશો? तुम करोगे क्या? खेती करोगे, तुमको जो जमीन दी गई है उसमें, और शाम को बैठ के दारू पियोगे, क्या करोगे? जाओ काम करो. And that motivated me. And then I like competition. I liked to stand first in my class, or and if not second, but first. And that was various things. So that was competition with my colleagues at school. And then after that, I came here, and people here joined us. And when I could not join the forest service, my father and my brother had gone to Clare College, Cambridge. And my father was a classmate of the great Dipen Singh. And my father's idol was the great Ranjitsinh Jhala. And I'm named after him. He was my father's local guardian, because he was Ranjitsinh Jhala, the cricketer, was with my grandfather at school, Rajkumar College. So, and they were friends, and that is how it. So anyway, he wanted me to go to Cambridge, and he put me down. But Cambridge required 3 years after MA. I was too young to go to Clare College, or Cambridge as it were. Because I was barely 16 when I passed St. Stephen, when I passed my
The school.
SC,
Ji.
senior
Secondary.
senior Cambridge certificate.
Ji.
And then, so I went to college here and did 3 years. Then they said 3 more years to do a tripos at Cambridge. So I said, no, why waste extra thing? 2 saal mein yahi kar lunga MA. And then it helped because my papers in history were were very similar to my papers in the IAS. So it helped in preparation for the IAS. But and I'm glad that while my hobby was natural history,
जी.
my specialization and education was in history. And it gave me a dimension, a perspective. I still am very fond of art, sculpture, architecture, the heritages of this great country, the man-made heritages of this country. And then came the hobby. I said, that is fine, but what about the natural heritage? Nature, the mountains, the wilderness, sanctified in our scriptures as Aranya.
जी.
What value wilderness? What about Aranya?
Sir, if I may ask, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you again, but I have so many questions. किस तरह की हिस्ट्री में आपको इंटरेस्ट था, और हिस्ट्री में particularly specifically
Ancient Indian history.
ancient Indian history.
My MA was ancient Indian history.
सर उस समय क्या पढ़ाया जाता था ancient Indian history में? उस समय क्या पढ़ाया जाता था? Is it the same that we are being taught today? Has it changed?
Not very much. You see, history till very modern times,
जी.
by those who wrote it, was political history.
जी.
Very little about social history.
जी.
Or culture. Cultural history came down with the political because the monuments were still there. And religious history. And I topped the university on the Buddhism paper. There was a subject, one of the 8 papers was Buddhism in ancient Indian history. And I am at heart a Buddhist. Because Buddhism is really not a religion. It's a way of life. Because there are two things. And he is the only preceptor who never saw divinity in himself. For 250 years, nobody dared depict him. Then they started depicting the Bodhi tree. Then came the elephant. And after 400 years or so, came the stupa. And now, of course, he's deified as a human being. But he himself said, I'm like you and me. And so that is great. And like Christ, and I don't want to compare, he never called him the Son of God. He just said, I had Gyan and I want to pass on the Gyan to you for better life. Marvelous.
Sir, there is, I feel, a similarity between Bhagwan Gautam Buddha, although he did not call himself Bhagwan, and you, from what I see is, आप दोनों अहिंसा के लिए जिए और आपने उसको दोनों ने प्रीच किया. Is the sense of protecting wildlife and protecting animals and living beings coming in from your fondness or liking of Buddha?
I wouldn't say that really. That would be maybe a bit far. But empathy for life, yes. That that life should be there should be a sanctity in saving life, and therefore I don't eat chicken anymore. Because I detest seeing these chicken. Is that what humanity is? To grow life to be slaughtered so that you and I can have a morsel of meat? I'm not a vegetarian. But I've become one bit. Because death for what? Commercial purpose? I can understand somebody surviving for sustenance.
Ji.
But to make it into a pisha, a livelihood, and you cut so many and slaughter without a thought, without any sense of remorse is a bit, is that human? It's certainly not humane, but is it human? Or is it human? Are humans meant to be that way? I question myself. I don't know.
So when
But
did you
this is-
stop?
this
When did you
is-
stop eating?
Sorry?
When did you stop eating non-vegetarian?
No, I still eat eggs and things like that, and occasionally I eat fish, I must confess.
Yes,
Um, but I've given up more or less eating meat.
largely.
Yeah.
सर, गौतम बुद्ध की ऐसी कौन सी टीचिंग है जो आपको सबसे ज्यादा स्ट्राइक करती है?
The noble truths, the 8 Arya Satyas. And that is what was the way of life taught to the layman. The Upasak was different. There were two ways. One, I think, and the fact that bhikshus come out, they don't beg, they just have the bowl. And it's up to you to give what you want to give, and it's for him to eat it all in one together without complaint. जो भी दे, मीट दे तो मीट ले लो, खा लो. जो वो दे, दान करे वो खाओ. So that kind of an attitude, and it's very, very interesting that live and let live. That should be the motive. And the doing away with what I regard is one of the worst human traits, ahamkar. That you are nobody, but you are everybody. You are a part of the great whole. And you will merge with it. And nothing is permanent. Everything is transient. So do what you can, when you can, while you can. It's a wonderful philosophy. And it's permanent. That philosophy will never, its significance will never die. Anyway.
Sir, when did you first learn about Gautam Buddha? At what age, what time, where?
When I was in school. I read about things because there was part of history that was taught at school, but then they taught everything else. But then I like ancient Indian history because that was when India was at its greatest, because the medieval period had invasions and things. And I'm very fond of monuments and sculptures and all that. And the ancient monuments attracted me. So does medieval. But the ancient monuments attracted me most. Pre-invasion or Muslim invasion, before the thing. But I am a student of history, of art also to that extent. And I accept the composite art traditions that we have now inherited, which is a mixture of Persian and Arabic and Hindu and Buddhist.
So I'm curious, in your family, what was the religious sentiment? What was the religious inclination of your family? Your religious inclination later on became Buddhism, towards Buddhism. But आपकी family में किनको मानते थे?
Balkrishna. This is from my great-grandmother. She brought this cult and made it the family thing. We were Krishna Bhakts. But she, my grandfather's mother, I never saw her. She passed away the year my father was married. But she brought in this Balkrishna worship, this Pushti mark of Guru Vallabhacharya, the famous saint. And we worship, my sampradaya, we worship Krishna up to the time he kills Kans and not thereafter. The Havelis, the Haveli culture and the Haveli music which goes with it. And these were from Wankaner. And my earliest sound when I used to wake up in the morning as a little boy was, if I may
Sir,
expand, मेरे तो मन गिरधर गोपाल दूसरो न कोई. And now as I go into my second childhood of age, I hear this other same similar refrain. मेरे तो मन बस बाघ ही बाघ दूसरो न कोई. Is that the only animal in India? Is that the only thing in nature that matters?
No.
You go not to see a park, you do not go to sever nature. You go to ogle at a tiger. You might as well see it. I tell my friend, जाओ zoo में देख लो. क्यों तकलीफ करते हो वहाँ जाने की? और वहाँ जाओ तो savor nature. Have communion with nature and see everything living there and cherish it. It's there. But you only go to see one animal. It's like the same. मेरे तो मन गिरधर गोपाल.
Sir, what has been the biggest challenge of your life?
That's a difficult one. To keep on fighting to save the great national natural heritage. And I have some wonderful people to think, but a lot of people do not want to fight. People whom I had very high regard for, they've given up. And so one has to struggle alone. And with a little, so it's a dilemma whether to keep on fighting and get frustrated at this age or to give up. But if I give up, I won't forgive myself. Because I believe in not giving up and trying. जो कुछ मिल जाए, 10% भी बच जाए, 5% भी बच जाए, तो one feels happy. One tried. That one tried and one gave it 100%. That is a thing, but it's frustrating. Because you're fighting against the trend, you're fighting against the milieu. क्या कर सकते हैं? अभी हवाई बदल गई है. And it's rather, if I may say so, with something. I have worked longer than any officer in the Ministry of Environment Forest ever since its creation. And now I find myself pitched in legal battles against my own alma mater. Not a nice feeling. But that's how things have changed.
It kind of puts me in a spot because I feel not just from the point of view of being an officer and fighting a legal battle against your own alma mater, but also from the point of view of just being human, that the thing that you worked for all your life at a point where maybe you should have gotten satisfaction that I have done so much and now I'm satisfied and I'm retired and I'm enjoying this life, you still are not satisfied. Is that an inner battle also, rather than just a legal battle, to say figuratively, sir?
No. No battle is. I don't enjoy battles, but I do it because I believe it's my duty, and I feel I will, as I said, I will not forgive myself if I don't do what I can.
Ji.
And That seems to be the only way, because writing, preaching, speaking doesn't work. You are up against the might of the bureaucracy and of the government. The thing is, it is frustrating, and to see the thing that you believed in, that you hopefully helped set up, being dismantled is at this point of time, ये होता है कि मरने के पहले क्या क्या और देखना है. Everything, denotification of national parks and sanctuaries, the changing of the rules, the giving away of huge chunks of magnificent forests. We are all not fools. We want development. We want the people. But it's like this. Compromise is life. And conservation has to have compromise. It's a way of life. We have very rarely said, ye mat karo. Very rarely do you have to come to that Rubicon, that Lakshman Rekha, कि ये नहीं हो सकता है. हो करना पड़ता है कभी. Most of the time it is finding alternatives, which is a compromise. But you do that. ऐसे रास्ता नहीं बनाओ, ऐसे बनाओ. इससे थोड़ा लंबा पड़ेगा, पर ये बच जाएगा. ये न करो, ये थोड़ा सा पावर लाइन जरूर लगाओ, अंडरग्राउंड कर दो. खर्चा थोड़ा बढ़ेगा, बट बहुत चीज बच जाएगी. इट्स अ क्वेश्चन ऑफ स्पेंडिंग मनी. जी. I'm a great believer of the teachings of Mahatma. Incidentally, did you know that Mahatma Gandhi's grandfather was the Diwan of Wankaner?
Wow. Okay.
Karamchand Gandhi was appointed as the Prime Minister of Wankaner. By my great-grandfather. And he lived there and worked for 7 years. And Gandhiji was not born there. He was born in Porbandar, but he lived for 7 years there. But I'm a great believer in his teachings, though I don't follow them. The thing he said was, there's everything in nature for the need of everybody. There is nothing in nature for the greed of anybody. So is my alma mater, or should I say, we as a government or people going to save only that which survives after satisfying the need and the greed of everybody? वही बचाना है कि कुछ और भी है कि ये नहीं ऐसे करो. And what are we saving? We're saving the natural heritage of this country, not animals, birds, but the mountains, the trees, the biodiversity, and the value of that has not been fathomed. I have written extensively on it, but we don't want to face up to it. The greatest gift is oxygen of nature and of water. Trees and forests gives oxygen, so does grassland. And do you know that our rivers come from national parks and sanctuaries? Something like 600 of them. And I'm citing you a concrete example. I'm digressing. But it's a subject that must be understood. When we established the Project Tiger, we were short of funds, and we wanted to spread ourselves. So 9 tiger range states in those days, before many of the states were split, like Madhya Pradesh and others. 1 tiger reserve per state, and in Bihar, Jharkhand was part of it, was Palamau.
Was?
Palamau. Palamau. And it's a rain shadow area suffering from a 3 years of continuous drought. And the cutting of trees, fire, grazing was stopped. The DFO there took an analysis of the water flow. And he divided the streams into 4 categories. Those that stopped flowing at the end of September, purely monsoonal. Those that stopped flowing at the end of December. Those that stopped flowing at the end of March. And those that were perennial, 4 categories. And in 3 years, he found, and it's on record, that the streams which were flowing till the end of September started flowing till the end of December. The December flowing streams extended themselves up to March, and the March ones became perennial. If that was what Palamau was given to the drought-stricken people of that locality and of India, they were more important than the 6 tigers that were then surviving in Palamau. And I love tigers. See, this is the kind of thing. They've done a survey of the ecological benefits of the Gir National Park, dividing it into कि अभी जो पूरा काट करके उसको खेती कर दो तो कितना मिलेगा और अभी कितना उसका net ecological benefit है. And it is mind-boggling. So the income derived from per acre of agriculture, as in areas up to 15 kilometers from radius from the boundary of the Gir National Park and Sanctuary, was something like over 35,000 rupees per acre or hectare, if I remember correctly. And it was less than 15,000, more than 15 kilometers away. Despite the fact that there was much more damage done close to the park from the wild animals, the wild ungulates, wild boar, cheetah, sambar, who come out from the park and damage the crop, nilgai. Then those who are further away, the kills done by livestock by lions and leopards. वो सबको देखते हुए, do you know that the finest mango in the world, to me, tastier than the Alfonso, is a mango called Kesar. It only grows within 15 kilometers of the Gir. There is much more rainfall. There is much more and the further away you go, there is no damage. And they found that the present ecological benefit is far greater than if it was converted into, I forget the exact figures, than if you convert it into agricultural land and give it away. This is the value of protected areas, what is called ecological benefits. But they are to be taken cognizance of and counted. That ye fayda hai, and this can only come if you acknowledge that. But it doesn't get you votes. The problem in this country is that nature conservation, ecology, and conservation per se doesn't get you votes. Everybody wants to have conservation in somebody else's constituency and not in his own. Because it means that free grazing is not allowed. That this culture of using every inch of land for humanity, I would, and then is that in keeping with our constitution? Is it in keeping with our culture? In the land of Buddha, Mahavir, Mahatma Gandhi, and Swami Vivekananda, aren't the animals also citizens of India? And something which again Mahatma Gandhi said, that whenever you take, and I try to keep that in mind all my career, when you take a decision, always keep in mind how your decision will affect the poorest of the poor. Um, one chief minister of Rajasthan started the Antoday project on that basis. How far that the benefit goes to the poorest of the poor of that village. So when you take any decision, should we not take into consideration how the speechless, the poorest of the poor citizens of India, the black buck and the cheetal, and the barking deer, I'm just giving an example,
Yes, sir.
Will be affected? Or is it, as I said, only meant for human nature? You can have it both, but it means compromise.
So, speaking about the great names that you just mentioned, I'm curious who have been mentors, the mentors of in your life. आपकी life में आपका mentor कौन था? If you were to name one person or maybe two people who were your mentors, और क्या philosophy थी जिसने आपको guide किया? उन्होंने क्या सिखाया आपको?
मेरे parents, they were my greatest mentors. उसके बाद बहुत से लोग थे. I have had some.
Sir, if I may ask, what did your parents preach, sir? क्या सिखाते थे आपको? क्या बोलते थे आपके parents? Mother and father both.
गलत काम मत करना. Be truthful to yourself. You can fool the world, but you can't fool yourself. And don't do anything which you will repent, and don't bring disgrace to your family and your tradition, because that tradition is more important than yourself. So कुछ भी करो तो वो ख्याल रखना कि फैमिली के ऊपर बेइज्जती कि ये यहाँ का था, वांकानेर का था, कि झाला था, कि जो भी
जी,
उसके ऊपर. सो दैट कीप्स वन स्ट्रेट. गलत काम मत करना जिसके लिए तुमको रिपेंट होना चाहिए. इट डजंट पे. एंड देन माय teachings were my mother, and I was very interested, and I read the Mahabharata, and she was a Ram Bhakt, and she used to tell, and my Nani was also wonderful, my mother's mother. She was a great storyteller, and she would tell parables of good behavior, and, great stories, and I used to sit at her feet, and she used to lie on the couch and keep on narrating stories whenever I used to go to Dungarpur, Mere Naniyal. And her statue is just outside my house in the veranda. And so those family traditions mattered at the time of formulation of one's character. And if one is strong enough and continuable, it's easy to slip. It's easy to slip when you have blandishments before you. But especially in government service, कि ये भी चलता है, वो भी चलता है, वो भी कर रहा है, so हम क्यों न करें. But it doesn't pay. I see people who dip their hands into the kitty, as it were, and pay the price. And the worst price is paid not only by them, but by their children. Because the disrepute, क्योंकि ये इसका लड़का था, इसने ये पैसा खाया था, ये किया था. In government service, I found, you are never uncomfortable, you are always well looked after. But you cannot become rich. At the end of your career, your richness in the reputation.
Beautiful.
You cannot become rich, but you are comfortable. Even now you're well looked after. I can live with my pension.
Yes, sir.
And do you believe it? That look at the way the rupee has gone. I started off with a salary of 390 rupees with 10 rupee hill allowance, 400 rupees in 1961 in Mussoorie. But that was enough to make both ends meet there. And we were not starving, or we were not poor. So it was enough. And then, so government thing. And then there were perks like a free car to go to office, and a house which was only for a few rupees deducted from your salary. So we were comfortable. We were well off in a way. But the main thing was the ability to do something worthwhile, which government service provides, which is not always there in the private sector. The ability to leave behind a mark, but what is more, to do something worthwhile, which probably will last.
Forever. For a long, long time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
coming back to the mentorship points, the mentorship question, you were also mentioning a mentor during your professional life apart from your parents. So, वो कौन थे sir?
There were a number of them. One was, apart from my own family, my two mamas, all my three maternal uncles, my paternal uncle also was very, very, he treated me like his own son. They were all very, very kind to me, and I learned so much from them. And both in way of life, in the way of wildlife, and in administration, two of them. And then in service, I must say, I have not had some very great experience from the political milieu. There are some very good people I worked with, but it would be not nice to name anybody who saw that, who saw something in me and who helped me and supported me. But in bureaucracy, there were a number of people who helped me.
If you were to name a few.
Yes. R.N. Malhotra. R.N. Malhotra was my... when I came from Kana, I came as Deputy Secretary of Finance. And I can tell you a story about him, which I've written in my book. There was Mr. Rainbow, who was my commissioner in Bhopal, in Jabalpur. There was the great Mr. Narona, ICS, who was my chief secretary. Here too, I had some, in Delhi too, I had some very good officers I worked with. No, I have been fortunate. Everybody is not, you cannot expect perfection in everything. But by and large, I have been well supported and encouraged. And I've learned something from a number of people.
सर गुरु का क्या महत्व है?
मैंने तो नेचर को गुरु माना है. मैंने कोई आदमी गुरु नहीं माना, but yes, guru can be a great guidance. But I really haven't had a human being as a the guru in the sense we think, but guru as a guide or as a mentor, certainly a number of them, a number of people, relatives, friends, role models, as it were, role models.
And you can find a guru in anything or anybody.
Yes. If I see something in him, it's worth emulating, I would like to accept that and try to model my way of thinking towards it, because it's a virtue.
Ji.
And one should, and I do believe that one never stops learning. Even at my age, I learned things from a lot of other people, which, if you keep your mind open, it's worth. But if you sort of say nothing can be learned, sab kuch humare paas hai, that's ego. But one can keep on learning, and I still learn every day. If one keeps one's mind open, and you learn from little things, you learn from creatures, you learn from little acts which seem insignificant, but they have They have substance.
It's beautiful, sir. Sir, I have met both your daughters during the Jaipur Literature Festival.
Yes.
And I have had the pleasure of talking to them. And the fact that who they are and where they live and what family they belong to, I found them extremely, extremely humble and very down to earth, just like yourself. Sir, how did you bring your children up?
As a bureaucrat's children, serving not taking undue advantage. You see, in government service, you can, should I say, overextend or misuse your perks. I used to see in my neighborhood people sending their children in school in government cars and fetching them. My children went in a bus to school, to college and back. They went to boarding school. But in college, they went in a bus.
Which college did they go to?
Lady Shri Ram College.
Both of them?
Both of them. Both went, one went to a school, boarding school in Jaipur, Gayatri Devi, and the other one went to Mayo. The younger one, because by that time Mayo had become a girls' school. So she went there. And then they both went to Lady Shri Ram College.
And what values did you bring them up with, sir? I'm so curious, sir, because I met both of them. I met Radhika ma'am also. And, you know, I was watching you speak, both of you speak on the book during the JLF. And then, you know, behind the scenes when we were sitting in the lounge and talking to her, it was an absolute pleasure. Even your wife, the humility that your family has is something that I have not witnessed in many people who are probably not even 1% of what you have done and who you are in your life. And sir, I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart because it does touch me. So I'm curious because if a parent is watching this, I would want them to bring their children up, and including me, in a way that you have brought them up. So I would love to know what values did you instill in them?
Look, for that credit must go to my wife if they are, because I was too busy, and I regret that. I didn't spend enough time with the children. I was too busy doing work. And but I did take all the opportunity I could to take them out, because there we could be together and there was bonding. And they were being exposed to nature and things. I used to take them with me on my jaunts and my visits to the various parts of India and the world. So, ye to hai. But it was, and sanskar to maa se padte.
Ji.
And she has no heirs. She doesn't, my wife. And it was she who brought up the children. And the other thing, maybe that they learnt from me and my wife being parents, and they learnt also from my parents, because they were very, very self-effacing and not domineering or not, egoistic or self-assertive. They were. My mother was strict, but strict in discipline and not in. But extremely. The main thing was affection, untrammeled affection, and if the children understand that they are loved, but they will not be spared if they go wrong, then they have a role model and they can learn कि ये गलत है. The main thing in life is what you should be doing and what you should not be doing, because it is wrong. Not because you can get away with it, not because there are other people doing it, so hum kyun na kare.
Just to have a moral compass.
Yes, moral concept, not necessarily because it's nothing, but because that's the best way and that's the right way. And I do believe that the right and the correct way are rewarded and that you do not suffer. You do not suffer I believe in retribution and rewards in the present life, not in the lives that follow, which we in Hinduism believe in. इसी जन्मारे में पता चल जाता है. So you keep yourself within those parameters and paradigms. Ultimately, you have satisfaction, and you self-control is a very big thing. Control and it's a discipline, self-discipline, and that sort of transcends to others. और आपको गौरव किस बात का? तो आपने जो किया उसका गौरव है कि आपने इसी there are many people बाप कर्मी and हूँ कर्मी and all that. And गर्व what? That you are so and so. The गर्व should be that this is my family tradition of the past. I'm proud of the history of my family, of my ancestors' days and of my ancestors themselves. Those who were good. They were not all of them 100%, but they were there who were some were out. And that is how you should learn from those people. And then it becomes a part of you. And then you pass on, because the children learn, after all, from the parents, especially from the mother.
Beautiful. Sir, this is going to be the last segment of the episode. And I have a couple of questions here.
Sure.
One of them is regarding the entrepreneurship in wildlife. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur, practicing entrepreneur, and on my show, I do interview a lot of entrepreneurs and different segments and industries of the country. So wildlife is a segment that has not been touched so much by entrepreneurs. And I believe that if sustainably, if the entrepreneurs work on wildlife in a very sustainable manner, we can create something that can benefit the economy of the country as well as the wildlife of the country. What do you think can today's entrepreneur do in the space of wildlife to preserve it as well as contribute to the economy of the country?
Very good question. And it can do a great deal if the vision is there and if the aptitude is there. What I find is that making money, and I'm sorry if I'm not being derogatory, I'm just being analytical with it. It becomes a ritual. It becomes an end in itself. And you make money to be comfortable. You make money to live well and your children to live well. After that, what? After that, you accumulate money because it becomes a part. You accumulate money for the sake of accumulating money, and I've seen that happen. And then there is a sort of a race that I'm richer than you. But richer for what? And in the process, you do all kinds of things which are legally or even morally not correct. But it happens. And it happens not just in this country, everywhere in the world. Making money becomes an end in itself. So, why not? And in this country, there is also a thing called CSR, Community Social Responsibility, in which you are required to donate 2% of your profit for social benefit of the people of the country. Now that is twisted around too. If you have the right inclination, I would like to know what have, over the years, nobody has really done, I think, any great research on this. But what has the corporate sector done? How much money have they contributed of their CSR? And to what end? For what purpose? A lot of it is for show, a lot of it is for furthering their own personal interest. But when it comes to this, land is so important. Land is being degraded. Land is being diverted, misused, and there is a tremendous amount for it. And the greatest threat to our parks and sanctuaries is isolation. See, islands of nature surrounded by sea of humanity. Sorry for the cliche, but and it's increasing. And within those islands too, now you're having what are called linear intrusions. 5 hectares of this and 2 hectares of this. And there is no aranya, there is no respite. So, if the corporate sector can acquire chunks of land which are degraded close to parks and sanctuaries and have private parks and sanctuaries, nature, not plantations, not exotics, but restoring it to nature, to give it unto nature what belongeth to nature. And you can call it, name that park. You see, I saw this in the Kutchi community, which is very unusual amongst people. People come here from after making their pile abroad. But the Kutchi, I found, goes back to his village, not even to Bhuj. There he lives like a lord. There he sort of patronizes the local people. School bana diya, library kar di, something named after Panchayat Bhavan, college, and name it after his wife, mother, grandmother, whoever. Why can't the corporate sector buy land and add to the protected area system of this country and call it their private parks? And I have told one household, I've extended it, that I would like to help you in identifying those areas, and you acquire them and you run it. I could help him. I want nothing from you. I'll come at my expense. But don't make it into a private zoo. So, because a private zoo is selfish. You're taking something away. You may call it whatever you may, but it is, you're keeping them away from things. That same money could be utilized in acquiring something which you will be able to proudly show to the people, where the people, it's CSR means community. The community should come, not a private zoo. So this this CSR activity.
Yes, sir.
Now, that would be, the other would be the recovery plan for endangered species. You focus in to prevent any species, and it can be floral, faunal, or could be any particular area, which we have unique ecosystems and unique and biomes, which are hotspots. You could be area specific, species specific, anything. So you support that particular and you focus in on that particular either area or species or a bunch of species, a conglomerate, as it were. But that is something, and then once it is saved, it can spread. There could be even regulated tourism which could help the local people. There would be employment. It would be an investment in nature.
So what
in
has,
the recovery of nature. And what I believe in is that one of the saddest thing that can happen is the extinction of a species. Show me a single species which has been revived after extinction. People have talked about it, that dinosaurs could, but show me a single one. I'm not talking about AI, artificial insemination, which has happened in the case of things. But I have known, I have known species to come back from the brink. Um, the European ibex was down to about 8 to 10 specimens, and now there are over 40,000 all over Europe. The Manipur brow antlered deer was 14 when I counted them.
Oh.
In one place only, Kaibul Lamjao. But I had the political support. It became the state animal. That Kaibul Lamjao became a national park. The local people took pride in it. And now, despite the trouble in Manipur, I believe it is still safe. It is over 100, 200. It's not out of the woods. But the Barasinga in Singh, there were just 64 left when I went there. Now they are over 900, and they've gone to 3 other parks.
Sir, how does the world view India as a wildlife tourism destination? You have traveled all over the world and seen wildlife everywhere.
India was a role model for conservation when some years ago. And we were always cited as a developing nation fighting against so many odds of population, poverty, pressure on land, etc. And we were a role model. Now, I'm told, of the 180 odd countries surveyed in environment, including wildlife, we are 177th down the list. That's not something to be proud of. 177th out of 100 surveyed in the countries of the world.
That is sad. Do you think there should be more entrepreneurs coming in this field?
Yes. And that will come. This is the paradox of India. That it's I've written it in my book, that despite all this poverty, it's one of the easiest countries in the world to protect nature. Because we are vegetarian, most of us. There is an empathy for life. It is sanctified. There are areas which are sacred, there are species which are sacred. The Nilgai survives because of its name. And Saras, and there's so many other species. Nobody cuts a banyan tree, nobody. You see, and my first book, I wrote a chapter on religious sentiment in wildlife. And there are communities who are prepared to lay down their life to save it. And Vishnus are not the only one. There are sacred groves all over. And that is why when I amended the Wildlife Act, I put the category of community reserves. The community themselves should save that area and the government should support it. So we have the wherewithal to do it, but it's a passive conservation. It requires a support of leadership and of encouragement. And that comes from the top echelons of power. And that must come.
Sir, with the honor of being in your presence, I would urge the people watching this episode, the aspiring entrepreneurs, to do some research on the scope of businesses that can be developed in the space of wildlife sustainably, so that we can do good to both the economy as well as the wildlife.
Not just tourism.
Not just tourism.
Tourism is a double-edged sword. It can help, it can harm.
Well, there are a few examples of other kinds of startups across the world that are not related to only tourism but wildlife. And at the same
of course
time,
it can. It can be, and it will be a wonderful experience. We could then again be leaders. We could show other developing countries how it can be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, the last question
Sure.
of the podcast. What would be one word of advice from you to a young person watching this episode? And it could be anything from your life.
Never give up on something you believe in, and every individual can make a difference. Don't hide behind the fact that you are alone, that the tide is against you. Every person, man or woman, can make a difference. Every child can make a difference if he sets his heart and mind to it.
Fantastic. Sir, on an ending note, I would like to draw the picture of the first time that I saw you. I remember I was sitting in the Authors Lounge at the Jaipur Literature Festival in 2025. And there you were sitting with a cup of tea and a cookie. And out of all the tables, I saw an old man who was very, very handsome looking. And I wanted to go and selfishly ask for an advice from the experience, from the moons that you have seen in your life for myself. And I sat there and I asked you, sir, if I may disturb you, and you were very kind that you may well. And I asked you, sir, what is one advice that you would give, or what is the one lesson of your life? And you very graciously welcomed me and said that, as your parents taught you, that don't forget where you come from, your family's pride. And when you do something, make sure you remember what you are doing. Have a moral compass that will guide you. And you can lie to others, but you can't lie to yourself. And that is something that will stay with me forever.
Thank you very much.
With this, I would like to thank you for being here on the show, for having me, my team, Jalaj, in your home, inviting us and giving us so much time and so much wisdom. Thank you so much, sir, for being on the Arrive podcast.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.